Hi, I'm Omar, and welcome to Youth News, the place for the next generation to share their opinions on the hot topics affecting their everyday lives. I'm joined today by Tolu, and remotely over in Colombia, joined by Ifyok, who just dodged a bullet apparently. What happened there?
Sorry, I just had a little bit of a sneeze. I'm
Oh, very
just
nice.
kind of getting over a little
You're
bit of a
good.
cold right now. So
I had a sneeze scare earlier, so you're fine. Anyways, today we are talking about racism, believe it or not, and we're talking about how it's prevalent in society and how it affects many things in our lives, including our identity formation.
yeah.
So I just want to put out the question real quick. How would you say that racism has affected the formation of your identity?
Really for me, it's just more of growing up seeing certain things. I'm afraid to do certain things because I'm like, okay, well, I don't want people to perceive me as this. I don't want people to say these things to me. But like as you grow up, you learn even more that like these things are okay. Like I feel like racism it plays a big part, and it's actually getting very scary, in
Yeah.
kids' lives. And I'm glad that we're living in a generation that's like telling people like, listen, be proud of who you are, be proud of, live proudly in your skin, like, things of that sort. If you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's we've talked about this earlier in our other segments, check them out, but how people love to put minorities in boxes and how
Yes.
we must stick to those boxes and we must stick to those attributes and it gets us further in life
Yeah.
than if we the latter of, thinking outside the box and acting outside the box and associating yourself with traits that aren't associated with your culture or your race. But yeah, what do you have to say about this?
You guys just want to talk. So when we're talking about racism playing on just race itself, how it impacts everybody else, and I liked what you said. Actually, when it comes to you're being put inside of a box itself, that occurs a lot, and I would say more often than not, I've seen it occur within, I would say, within minority groups itself, where they expect you to act a certain way. I grew up, of course, you guys can hear the way I speak. Some words I may say sound a little weird because my father was from Nigeria. My mom, she's from St. Lucia. So I was always taught to speak very clearly.
Hmm.
I remember growing up, a lot of kids would tell me, "Oh, you sound white. You don't sound like a typical black person." And I remember even then, one of my friends from he immigrated here from China. He looked at me in straight in the eyes. He's like, "You're not like other black people," which I didn't know if that was a compliment or if I was kind of taken aback. But it's just something where I've even seen where somebody even told me that you're a little too proper for some people, and that kind of that such thing as too proper. What if I was a
Right.
different race? Would I be seen as too proper? So I think a lot of that, I guess, that racial tension that we may have and the expectation of needing to act a certain way,
Yeah.
really a lot of it, yes, it is societal, but a lot of it can be traced back into our own minority groups, whether it's black, Hispanic, whatever it is. We all go back to that same thing of sometimes people within our own groups tell us we have to act a certain way for
Yeah.
us to pretty much be seen as accepted.
And when you think about it through the lens of identity formation, if you are constantly told you are not, you're not acting the way you should be, you are a little bit too well spoken for your race,
Yeah.
you are a little bit too feminine for your race. If these things are constantly told to you, imagine how that could impact you through the different stages of your life. I personally, as an Arab man, I constantly struggle with my femininity. I'm very confident in my masculinity. I was raised to be very masculine, and it gets me further in life to be masculine. But it comes to the point where my physical attributes, my skin tone, the hair on my body, my height, my build, everything is associated with masculinity by default. So it brings into the question where does me begin? If all
Yeah.
of these things were already set out for me and I have to comply with these restrictions in order to get far in life,
Yeah.
at least in our progressing, slowly progressing, but not yet progressive world, where does me start? When do I start showing my own, my true colors?
Yeah.
I know people do that, but they often get ridiculed, whether that's online or in the streets, for showing their true colors. You see a lot of feminine black guys coming out, and they're constantly being ridiculed on Twitter, all over Twitter, in the streets. They're like, what are you doing, man? They're always like, and it's hard. I mean, you're in a brotherhood yourself, sorry. How does that fit into the standard in which you're supposed to?
With them, it's like, you know, they, the brotherhood I'm in, like, they like to uplift people. And I think that's actually a great place to start, you know, uplifting people, telling people, like, you know, it's okay to do this, it's okay to do that. It's okay to act like this, it's okay to act like that. And I like how you guys brought up, you know, your household and your parents. For me, I noticed that he said he's Nigerian. I'm Nigerian as well.
Really?
And I've been taught to, like, speak proper, don't say these words, don't say that. And granted, you know, I'm not, like, you know, throwing, like, any rocks at my parents or anything. It's just, you know, how they were raised. And it goes on to the next child. And, you know, it has to stop at some point. And I feel like all of this starts from the household, especially the whole racism, loving yourself. Some parents, you know, they don't, how do I say it? Some parents are not comfortable with the lifestyle they had. They're not comfortable in their own skin, and then they project it onto their own children. And it just keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going. And it's just like, you know, it makes you form an identity that you now have to struggle with when you're older. Because you get older and you see all these people like, oh, well, she's happy in her skin.
Right.
Why was I raised not to be happy in my skin?
Right.
And now you're 27 years old trying to figure out, how do I get to her level of being happy or like being happy of, you know what I mean? I'm sorry, I couldn't even get the words out.
What about our other Nigerian brother? What do you have to say about that?
Well, so a lot of things say, people look at me and be like, oh, they expect certain things from me. I'm very controversial with things that I say.
Yeah.
I like to ruffle feathers of both sides. It doesn't matter which it is. And I'll say for me, I grew up, and I still pretty much am, I'm in a very traditional household where the men take lead. My father, he became sick when I was very young, and we started taking care of him and everything like that. And he passed away in 2020. And during that time, my mother, and maybe I'm the opposite of many other people in my generation today, but I applauded her and I thanked her pretty much for her going through and not coddling me. I remember one time I started crying and everything. And she looked at me straight in the eye. She's like, "Ifyok, why are you crying? Just suck it up, man up." That was pretty much her thoughts at the time. And others might have looked and said, "Wow, that's so rude and that's so mean." But for me, I took it as something that was uplifting to me because she on herself was teaching me to pretty much be brought up in a world that is going to be, and I'm saying this from myself being a black man and right in this society, society is going to look at you and put certain standards upon you. And my mother was pretty much preparing me for those times where there's going to be times where society will not care what you feel, not care what you're going through, and it's just life itself.
Yeah.
And I think just with that, it built up. I can see like the really strong Caribbean and African qualities that are inside of my family, and that was instilled in me. And I think that has pretty much allowed me to accept more of who I am as Nigerian American, Caribbean American.
No.
I go through and I can say, okay, I'm comfortable in my skin. I'm comfortable with who I am because my family, right there, from my mother, my aunties, my grandfather, my father, they all took it upon themselves to instill inside of me that kind of pride and saying, be proud of who you are. Be proud of who we built you up to be.
Yeah.
Because like if my dad was here today, he'd be like, Ifyok, you must go through and make sure you are the best you can be. And it pretty much it helps me to keep on pushing forward.
What a great lesson to. No, I really like that. I'm gonna steal that from you. No, but for sure, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot that we have been through as, you know, men of culture.
Yeah.
A lot that we've been conditioned to feel. A lot that we have been that we have grown past and moved past as a result of our progressive society. But I know that other cultures feel differently. You know, a lot of Asian people are deemed feminine, or, you know, a lot of us are fetishized for it. Like, it's very weird, and it definitely has an impact on our identity formation. But I would love to open this conversation to you guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. Please check out our YouTube channel at WatchYNN. Please comment on our Instagram. Let us know how you feel. Let us know if you've had similar experiences. We'd love to hear it. I'm Omar. Nice to be able to have this open conversation with you guys. All right, have a good one.